Listen, I want to thank everyone for coming here. This is a really special day. Because I'm here, and collectively we are here to announce a significant expansion in public lands protection in Milcreek, Big Cottonwood, and Little Cottonwood canyons. When Congress goes back into session at the end of next week, I will be introducing the Wasatch Wilderness and Watershed Protection Act. It will designate an additional 26,000 acres of wilderness and special management area protection. This is the first major Wasatch Front watershed protection effort since the Utah Wilderness Act of 1984. Since 1984, let's think about what's happened. The population of Salt Lake County then was 678,000. Now it's 1.1 million. And more than 500,000 people in the Salt Lake Valley get most of their drinking water from these canyons. Besides that, millions of local residents and visitors spend time hiking, rock climbing, snowshoeing, skiing, and enjoying the great outdoors of these canyons. These peaks and canyons form the stunning natural backdrop for our homes, for our businesses, and for our state capitol. For at least 25 years, many groups have talked about this goal. And today, I'm very pleased to acknowledge the months of discussion that have taken place behind with a very diverse group of stakeholders that helped produce this bill. I would like to particularly thank Ann Ober from Salt Lake County, who's here today. She performed the role of a facilitator when all these disparate groups were getting together to have these stakeholder discussions. And Ann was a true honest broker, and she helped a lot in making this bill happen today. I will just briefly name a few highlights of this bill. It creates a new 7,700-acre wilderness area on Grandeur Peak, Mount Ayr, to be called the Wayne Owens Grandeur Peak Wilderness Area. I'm sure that many in this room remember Wayne's tireless advocacy for the public lands of Utah that he loved so much. Wayne Owens is the first person I ever met in politics when I was 12 years old and I was watching the Magna 4th of July parade, and he came up and shook my hand that year when he was running for Congress. And Wayne has been a very special friend to me and to my family. I think it's a very fitting tribute to his efforts and to his memory, and I'm very pleased that his wife Marlene could join us today, along with his daughter and daughter-in-law and grandchildren as well. This legislation also creates special management areas totaling over 10,000 acres. Now, these areas will be managed for strict watershed protection while allowing for the permitted use by the helicopter skiing business under existing forest rules and regulations. This bill resolves a long-standing conflict between backcountry skiers and snowbird ski resort over issues related to White Pine Canyon. It closes an ATV trail, but it maintains a trail that is very popular with the mountain biking community, the Mill D Trail. It is a compromise. It's reached by a number of businesses, environmentalists, the city, and county entities. And as is the nature of any compromise, everyone gave up something in order to arrive at the bill that's before us today. This bill that furthers the common goals that we all share, protecting the watershed and preserving the outdoor experience. Now, the company hosting us today, Black Diamond Equipment, is an employer that is here because of the outdoor recreation opportunities that these canyons offer. They are one example of the multi-billion-dollar tourism economy that Utah enjoys thanks to its remarkable public lands that support so many outdoor activities. And I really want to thank Peter Metcalf, who we'll hear from in a second, for his role as a supporter of public lands protection and outdoor jobs. Wallace Charles Stedner, the famous writer who lived in Salt Lake and admired the collective spirit of the early Mormon settlers, noted that water is the true wealth in a dry land. Recognizing the asset of abundant, clean water was one of the great successes of our ancestors in this valley. It is one that everyone here today, as well as hundreds of thousands of Utahns, wants very much to pass on to future generations, and this legislation will help us do that. Now, I would like to ask Salt Lake City Mayor Ralph Becker, who's been a critical and key partner in this whole effort and my main advisor, quite frankly, to speak next. And after that, I'd like to call on Sandy Mayor Tom Dolan, followed by a few words from Carl Fisher, Director of Save Our Canyons, Bob Bona, representing Snowbird Ski Resort, and then I'd like Peter Metcalf to close the formal part of the presentation, then we can open up for some questions.
Thank you, Congressman Matheson, and so many people here today. I know some of you have worked for decades. It probably feels like generations, even for those of you who are in the same generation, to work towards this day of a new wilderness and watershed protection bill for our Wasatch Canyons. I also want to particularly thank, as was mentioned, in our government, Jeff Niermeyer and Laura Briefer, who worked, I can tell you, tirelessly day and night to help bring about this moment. The Wasatch Mountains are maybe the greatest resource of Salt Lake. It is an unparalleled watershed, and that, as Jim mentioned, serves 500,000 or so people and provides 50% or more of the water that we get in this valley. It's also of immense importance to us for recreational and the symbolic resource that it represents, I think, for us in the valley and in the mountains. And what is particularly unique about the Wasatch, I think that differentiates it from any mountain range, is its proximity to a major urban area. So many of us here know that we literally have the Wasatch Mountains as our backyards, and there is no other place in this country, and when I talk to people who have a lot more international experience, they confirm there's no other place in the world that has this resource. It's, as Jim mentioned, a constant reminder for us every day in the valley. It's also a resource that we enjoy so much for our recreational pursuits and in the provision of water. As a watershed, which is Salt Lake City's unique responsibility, going back to the very basic documents of our state, under state law, and certainly under federal law as well, watershed protection is the preeminent use and resource characteristic of these mountains. And we take, and fortunately I think for all of us in this valley, have taken for many decades that responsibility very seriously. It is the reason that we have seen time after time an ability of federal and state and local people coming together and saying and acting in a way to put watershed protection first. As a personal matter, when I first moved here in 1974, the population in this valley was about 540,000 people. I immediately gravitated towards the mountains, an uphill gravity. And in that era, while we certainly had ski resorts, Snowbird had opened very recently before that. The other ski resorts were pretty much mom and pop operations, beloved locally and recognized internationally. But it was relatively easy in that era to both enjoy the Wasatch and to protect the watershed. But today we face something that is really a whole different environment. Our population has doubled. with a combination of the Olympics and just the renown of our snow, which all of you should be in today, of our snow and the resource that we have here, the pressures have grown exponentially in these canyons, and the uses have changed. All of that means that for us, I think, in terms of the watershed protection and in terms of preservation of these canyons for ourselves and for future generations, that it is incumbent on us to recognize the pace of change we've gone through and the pressures that today are so much more than they were just a generation ago. This legislation, which we know is a very rare event. The Lone Peak Wilderness Act was passed, as I recall, in '78. So we're now a good generation later. And we have to take advantage of this moment. That means that really all of us who care about the Wasatch have to remember that we're here not only as caretakers for today, but for the future and for future generations. I particularly commend Congressman Malkerson in this effort. Like his father, he's principled and holds true not only to his values, but to what he believes is in the greatest interest of the public for today and tomorrow. And this legislation is a prime example of that value and of that principle. Thanks. So thank you, Jessica. For the future, for all of us, let's all really get to work now and get behind this legislation and get it passed. Thank you.
I don't think this could have ever happened if it wasn't for the leadership of Congressman Matheson. There are so many diverse groups and so many diverse interests, and I, along with Ralph, believe that this is for the future of those that come behind us in Salt Lake Valley, to have the access to the mountains. For Sandy City residents, this is extremely important. A large part of our water supply comes out of Little Cottonwood Canyon, and for many years, the protection of that was really Salt Lake City and their water department that have really helped us immensely to be a part of this and to be able to secure clean water for our residents for the future really makes the difference on what quality of life our residents will live into the future. Some people would say this could never happen. I would like Congressman Matheson to go back to Washington, D.C. and show people what it takes and what it's like to draw all sides together and to make something positive happen for everyone with their interests. I think it's unusual today, and certainly it is in D.C., but I think it's because of his honesty, integrity, a wonderful staff, and his ability to pull people together. And as Ralph said, he has that character that we would all look for in a leader. Let me also thank a few other people that were involved in this that have been recognized before. Mayor Becker, Mayor Caroon, Carl Fisher, Save Our Canyons, Bob Bonar from Snowbird, but also our city council member, Chris McCandless. Chris took on this as a personal crusade that he wanted to be part. He's an outdoorsman. He's an environmentalist. He's in the back there, little short guy. But really, he took this to heart and kept us involved in the process so that we were able to see the protections of those things that were the most interest to Sandy residents. So thank you, Congressman. Thank you all that were involved. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, this is just really a momentous occasion for everyone that's worked so hard to protect the remaining wildlands of the Wasatch Mountains, which serve as the backdrop of Salt Lake City. This event represents over a decade of advocacy work and collaboration, not only amongst past and present Save Our Canyons staff, board, volunteers, members, and supporters, but also by the various stakeholders
who have worked tirelessly and passionately throughout. We were founded in 1972 to protect these mountains. We worked to establish the existing wilderness areas we all enjoy today, and the founders of our organization, Gail Dick and Alexis Kellner, are still active and serving on the board today. So thank you for everything you guys have done. This place is treasured by locals and used by millions of people across the globe each year. The Wasatch Mountains are one of the most heavily utilized national forests in all of the United States, not only because of their proximity to a large urban population, but also because of their magnificence. And that population is very active in the outdoors, and these areas are very important to them. In 1918, preservationist John Muir came here and wrote about our mountains. And he said, "The glacial developments of these superb ranges are sharply sculptured peaks and crests with ample wombs between them where the ancient snows of glacial period were collected and transformed into ice, and ranks of profoundly shadowy canyons, while moraines commensurate with lofty fountains extend into the valleys, forming the grandest series of glacial monuments I have seen yet this side of the Sierra." I couldn't agree more with Muir, and they are indeed a national treasure, but also our home. While the grandeur of these mountains is noteworthy, the water resources they provide to us are invaluable and irreplaceable. Flowing rapidly in the spring and summer months, these canyons are a conduit by which over 500,000 Salt Lake Valley residents receive clean drinking water, with so many people doing many things in these canyons. These resources are in jeopardy of being loved to death. This legislation provides for additional measures that will help ensure the people of the Salt Lake Valley will not only have access to these areas, but to clean drinking water. So many people, whether hiking a few miles to look at the scenery or backpacking across numerous unique canyons, skiing in one of our resorts, or enjoying pristine powder in the backcountry, picnicking along a stream, or taking photos of wildlife in a field of flowers, we all have one thing in common: deep passion for the beauty of these mountains. This legislation will ensure that future generations of Utahns and visitors to the Wasatch will be able to enjoy this and benefit from the high quality of life that we receive from them. Through this process, Save Our Canyons has sought for unanimity in support of increasing protections to the Wasatch Mountains. Just this morning, I spoke with Ashley Kornblatt, Public Lands Director for the International Mountain Biking Association, who is excited to offer support for the protections in the Wasatch. She said, "When mountain biking trails are accommodated, wilderness designations can enhance mountain biking opportunities by protecting the intact ecosystems we all enjoy. This is just one of the reasons IMBA supports this bill. We are excited to take the next steps with IMBA and the many other supporters of this legislation and lovers of the Wasatch. This has been an incredible journey for everyone at Save Our Canyons, but we realize this is only one step up a steep trail in the Wasatch. We hope that everyone will join us, Congressman Matheson, Mayor Becker, Mayor Dolan, and all the passionate supporters, and join us collectively to save our canyons." Thanks.
Well, I would echo a lot of what's already been said. This has been an amazing journey with a very diverse group of people and a very educational and rewarding experience. It really is amazing that we're all here today on the same page and hoping to move forward on a very worthwhile endeavor. Especially in light of the fact that I see so many skiers here today, and it's a great powder day. I can't believe it. Maybe we didn't postpone it until tomorrow. But it's already been said that that it's been a challenge. There's been a lot of issues. But I think my most important takeaway from this is it's amazing how much everyone in this room and all of the stakeholders through this process care about these beautiful canyons that we're all so fortunate to live so close to, and we all love them so much. So I also would like to thank all of the stakeholders. It's been a long road. It never would have happened without Congressman Matheson's office, without the support of Salt Lake City and Mayor Becker and Salt Lake City Water, and the support from Save Our Canyons and Sandy City, and it's a pretty long list. And I'll just close my remarks by saying that Snowbird Resort is proud to have been a part of the process and proud to support and help ensure clean water for the future and sustainable recreation opportunities for a growing population. Thank you. Thank you.
Let me begin by just saying that Black Diamond moved here almost 20 years ago. The last 20 years have been an absolutely amazing ride for the company and our employees, and we wouldn't be the company we are today if we had chosen any other place in America to move to. Being here at the base of the Wasatch Mountains with its wild landscapes has really, to a great extent, made us who we are. And as monumental as an event this really feels like today, 20 years from now, this will really feel like a visionary act. So thank you, Jim. Like Jim, I'm going to quote from Utah's favorite son writer, Wallace Stegner, who wrote this quote that I have up on my wall, and I've had it there for about 15 years. I would like to see the West, with all its subregions and subcultures, both prosperous and environmentally healthy, with a civilization to match its scenery. As a city, Salt Lake City is blessed with the most spectacular mountain backdrop of any city in America. It is a source of both inspiration and adulation. It's a source of recreation, of economic power, and our water supply. Its greatness and its grandeur challenges us every day as we attempt to build here a civilization on par with what God Himself has given us. Part of building a great civilization is a civilization that can engage those of differing opinions to create the best for the common long-term good of society. Part of building a great civilization is cultivating our humanity, which in part requires us to protect the wild places that play such a subtle but absolutely integral role in our lives. The greatness of our civilization here on the Wasatch Front, as well as our economic health and well-being, requires that we protect these inspiring natural landscapes that make the brilliant backdrop of this truly great city. It is mutually reinforcing and a symbiotic relationship, landscape, civilization. You lose one, and you're destined to lose the greatness of the other. As Stuart Brand, the author of The Whole Earth Catalog, wrote many years ago, natural systems are priceless in value and nearly impossible to replace, but they're cheap to maintain. All you have to do is defend them. And we all know that part, all you got to do, is incredibly hard. And so for this reason, my most heartfelt and sincere congratulations goes to you, Congressman Matheson, for your leadership and your vision in driving this thing forward. I know that wasn't easy. And to your staff, especially Mike Rieberg, and to all the other people we've mentioned here for their unwavering support of this. We've got a lot to give thanks for and much to cheer about today. Jim, thank you so much.
One more thing I want to mention, and then we're happy to answer some questions, but all of these materials, the maps, the text, everything will be on my congressional website. We want a public comment period to take place. We want people to give us their thoughts and ideas And we want this to be a very inclusive process. It's been inclusive all along with a lot of stakeholders, but this is the next step. So that'll be on our website shortly. Next week. And we look forward to everyone working together to bring this to fruition. So appreciate all the folks who came to speak today. And I don't know if anybody has any particular questions they want to ask from the press. I know probably got to get out in a few minutes, so we'll let yeah, go ahead.
I could have a question. You were talking earlier about the compromise, and you said that everyone gave up something to arrive at the bill we have today. Can you give some examples of that?
Well, there may be a long list of what the compromises were, and I will. I fear getting myself in trouble by mentioning one and not another. Listen, there were some folks who would have preferred all wilderness designation without the helicopter scheme. The special management designation, for lack of a better description, really is wilderness protection but for helicopter scheme. And so that's a model that has developed in other states, including Colorado, in legislation that has passed Congress recently. And so we use that template in terms of precedent set in other wilderness and land protection bills, and we follow that here as well. And so that would be one example of a compromise. Some people would prefer that the Mill D trail wasn't included. That was kept in the bill. It was an important issue for the mountain biking community. And so there are a series of compromises that went on. I understand that when you have compromises, as I said earlier, not everyone is completely happy with every aspect of this bill. But the way things work in our constitutional system when you legislate is you got to build some level of consensus. And at some point when that consensus is right, you pull the trigger. And that's what we're trying to do now. All right. Yeah, Tim.
From the old climbers, way to go.
We don't have any more. We got one more. Yeah.
What are the perceived consequences of not taking this action and not passing this bill?
That's a good question. He's asking what happens if you don't pass this bill compared to if you pass it. What you're doing by passing this legislation is you are basically securing the future of the watershed. You are creating management tools that create greater certainty and allow for the watershed to be maintained. It also creates certainty for everyone about what will and won't happen in these areas. That has value to a lot of folks. And so if this doesn't happen, you're going to continue with uncertainty, you're going to continue with less enforcement capability, and you face the degradation of the watershed in that process. So I think that's really the fundamental objective, and that's what we're going to achieve here at this point.
Senator, this is only one small part of Utah that's up for consideration as wilderness. Are you going to do and push for more wilderness in the rest of the state?
You know, broader question. I was involved, as a lot of you know, in the Washington County lands legislation that was signed into law. I think we've developed an idea that having a more collaborative process, engaging lots of folks on a local level, is the best way to move forward. I think doing it doesn't necessarily have to be county by county, but the notion of doing it in smaller chunks is something that the Obama administration has testified for Congress that they think that's the right approach for Utah. And I would submit that a lot of folks in Utah and a lot of counties are expressing great interest in looking to move ahead with land protection bills. So I certainly intend to be engaged with that as well. This particular legislation is the one that is right. It's the one where consensus has happened. In other places that consensus hasn't happened yet, but we're all going to work to see if we can get there on those as well.
If you're trading away things, can we still call this wilderness? Can we still call what you do in the rest of the state wilderness protection? If you're going to trade off major things like helicopters.
I would submit to you that about of the 26,000 acres, about 15 and a half or so are wilderness. The other 10 and a half are special management district. I would call that a wilderness and watershed protection piece of legislation, and it's the way to get this done.
Well, I have a question. Wilderness in general has been certainly on the state level, in the state legislature, the feelings that there's too much wilderness in Utah. And what do you, have you reached out to your colleagues, I guess, Congressman Bishop and Chaffetz, what do they think about this? And without their support, is that going to hinder its movement forward?
This particular proposal lies solely within the boundaries of the 2nd Congressional District, so the short answer is we've not engaged the other members in the House on this discussion. We've engaged, for example, we have a tip that goes into Utah County. We've gone and met with the Utah County Commissioners. They understand what we're doing. They're not going to oppose this bill. I've had preliminary discussions with our senators about the process we've undertaken and the stakeholder involvement and the consensus in the bill. And I hope all the Utah delegation will embrace this. But the first thing we had to do was get these stakeholders having themselves on the same page, and that's what we've done so far.
Do you see that, though, as a challenge moving forward? Now that you've gotten this together, moving forward now, do you see that as a challenge?
I see the consensus that we've described today as the answer to all those challenges.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, you mentioned the Washington County bill, and of course Senator Bennett worked very actively with that along with you. You said you've talked to the Senate part of the delegation, but do you have anybody on board with you there?
Let me be clear. This is different than the Washington County bill in some respects. This is an ongoing process where I indicated I would help engage the stakeholder process. Our senators said, fine, you go ahead and do that. They're involved in other things at the same time. They understand exactly where we've been going. And now that we've got this consensus, we're engaged in the discussion. But if you're asking today, is there a Senate counterpart to this bill? The answer is there is not. But I look forward to talking about it, and I suspect that they'll be on board.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
All right.